record. All right. So, welcome to the How Far Can I Swim webinar. I am Adina O'Neill, the head coach. I like to say the head joy coach at Team Be Real. I'm the founder of Team Be Real, where we build belief, belonging, and confidence in all athletes. And tonight we are talking all about the long swim. And before I start sharing and getting the actual presentation underway, just to let you know, I will keep an eye on the chat. If you have any questions in the, feel free to drop them in there, and I will work on keeping my eye on them as we go along. If something comes up along the way and you want to just ask a question, all of a sudden I'm realized, can you see me? I can't see myself. I'm like, all right, if you guys can see me, that's good. I don't know why I can't see myself, but that's kind of funny. It's okay. If you have questions along the way, and you're comfortable, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. I like to keep things pretty casual and just have a good time here. So, in the beginning, I'm going to be paying a little attention to letting people in on the chat, letting people enter, and all that other fun stuff. So, if you're just signing on, everyone is saying where they're from in the chat. Letty, yes, Arizona. We've got East Coast, West Coast, Canada. We've got a little bit of everything. So this is exciting. And all right, we've got view slideshow. Ta-da! All right. Oh, look, we're actually, I don't know, somehow we're at the end. Boom. The best thing about having a brand with the word real in it is if you make a mistake, it's okay because we're just all about being real people. So I welcome you all to the How Far Can You Swim webinar. Like I said, I am Adina O'Neill, the founder and head coach at Team Be Real. And I, was thinking about my own long swims this summer, and I said, wow, I wonder if other people are thinking about long swims, need some help with their long swims and figuring out what to do. So I pulled this together kind of at the last minute, in collaboration with a a collaboration that I'm doing with Swim to the Moon, and working out some really fun training pods that I am offering through the Swim to the Moon program. If you do not know about Swim to the Moon, we're going to talk about it towards the end. Absolutely an awesome open water swim event. But here we'll let you get a little idea of what's going to happen. I'll tell you a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know me yet. And you know what I'm going to do? Actually, hold on just a second. I am going to see, because I cannot see the waiting room while the screen is on. So give me just a second here. I'm going to see if I can just kind of let that open up the waiting room. I have to stop sharing. Just a second. See, real life. See, someone was in the waiting room. This is why we're doing this. Sidebar, any endurance activity that you do, the most important thing is to know how to find a solution when things don't go the way you expect them to go. So there we go. So everyone should be able to get into the waiting room now. All right, take two. Boom, let's get this going. Okay, view, slideshow, off we go. Excellent. Okay, so just a little bit about me. My name is Adina. I am a marathon and ice swimmer and a triathlete. I have done I'm a bit kind of like one and doneer when it comes to events. Like I've done one marathon, I've done one Ironman, I've done one 200-meter ice swim. I kind of like to do something and then find something else exciting to do. I've done a variety of different things. I still dabble in ice swimming. I marathon swimming is my joy at the moment. I'm attempting to be the first person to do the Boston Light Swim backstroke this summer. There's me up in the corner doing some backstroke, um, and um, I love the variety of endurance sports that we can have here. I am an inclusion champion. Everything that Team Be Real stands for. Whoopsie. Everything that Team Be Real stands for is about um, encouraging inclusion and making a space for all athletes. Obviously, I'm a coach. I coach swimmers, triathletes. I do learn to swim. I coach master swimming. I do swim technique, a whole bunch of lots of swim focus. Obviously, Team Be Real is a group coaching program that I started. I'm also an author of Forward is a Pace. If you have not read it yet, that's my son. Very excited, happy for me when the book first got published, which is pretty cool. And we're going to yeah, that's kind of our my it was something that I never really expected I would do, but kind of came out of being being an endurance athlete and everything that I have learned. I am having trouble with my screen. I'm sorry. Oh, come on, screen. There we go. Um, and just the different things that I've learned going from an awkward athlete to a confident coach. And I'm also a motivational speaker. I met some people at the Beyond the Breakers Endurance Swim Conference. If you have not gone, there's another one coming up in November. It is a great conference about everything open water swimming. Highly recommend. Okay. So let's jump in. Somehow I lost. What happened to my goodness? There's the agenda. These are the different things that we're going to talk about today. Things got a little out of order. So we want to talk about choosing a distance. We're going to talk about some of the mental shifts that happen for marathon swimming in particular. If you're kind of a little new to the world of endurance swimming, a marathon swim is anything 10K or longer. But a 5K is still a long swim. 1 mile, 2 mile swims, these are all long swims. So you can apply some of the thoughts around marathon swimming to that as well. And then we're going to talk about some logistics for long swims in particular, questions, and then we are going to talk about some of these coach training pods. As I mentioned earlier, I have collaborated with Swim to the Moon to create some coaching options, and I'll tell you a little bit about that as well. And you know, as a swim coach, my job is to help you be happy in the water and achieve your swim goals. So we'll share a little bit about what that is and how I might be able to help you along the way. So here we go. Choosing your distance. The very first thing we want to talk about is understanding, you know, what distance we're going to be swimming. And there's a few different ways that you can choose your distance and figure out what distance is right for you. One thing that's kind of unique to endurance swimming is that it's more a function of your weekly volume as opposed to that one long swim. So if you're familiar with, training for a running race or even a cycling race, you know, if you have that one long ride or run or swim, it is important, but there's a big focus on swimming for the weekly volume. So we look a lot at what the weekly volume is. And I actually am curious to know if you guys can drop in the chat races or what volume you're thinking about. I wanted to just have that in mind as well, so that way I can make sure to gear the discussion to what is most important to you. I know a couple people responded back saying that they're doing some smaller, shorter distances, which is great. But if you have an idea of if you've signed up for anything, or if you what distance you're kind of thinking about doing. So 3K and a 5K this year. Awesome. Perfect. Definitely in the right place. Um, Sprint and a half Ironman. Yep. Yeah. So that half Ironman, 1.2 mile swim will be your longest swim. Excellent. 10K, Portland Bridge swim. Nice. 2.5 mile open water swim, working up to 2 miles. Great. So yeah, we've got some short distance and long distance. Nantasket Lap, 6.2 miles. Yes, that's a favorite of mine. And 1.5 mile. And we've got actually Liz, awesome, is training for the Otillo swim run. So she's got a total of a 5 mile swim within that event. So yeah, great. So we've basically, when we're looking at our swimming, like I said, is you want to think about the weekly volume. So I've kind of laid out here a general guideline to get an idea of how long it may take to build up to the event. So if we're looking at a 5K distance, I would think, if you're swimming 2K a week, it might take you 8 weeks to build a base. That's kind of what we have here, 8-week base building. And then a 16-week plan to, if you were up to that 3.5K weekly basis, can get you up to a 5K. And you see what I'm talking about, whereas like here we're talking about a weekly amount of 2K to get started, a weekly amount of 3.5K to get started, to build up to this single 5K swim. So it's not so much about you need to already be swimming 3.5K in one session to start that 16-week plan, but over a week. And for me, I give it an idea of, like, even if you're at 1K, 2 sessions of 1K and a 1.5K session, then you're kind of on your way, and you've got 16 weeks to build up to that 5K swim. 10K, then, here's the same kind of setup. If you're kind of starting, if you're at a 4K level, you want to get that 8-week base building in first. So that way you're up to about a 7K weekly distance to pull in those 16 weeks up to you'll get up to a 10K weekly distance, and then also build up a long swim. I know someone had asked a question about building up from 5K to 10K, and this is probably a good time to mention to talk about that a little bit. If you can see, if you've got that, if you can already swim a 5K, you probably can take, this a 16-week kind of plan to build up from that 5K pretty gradually to the 10K. And we'll talk about some specifics of training in a little bit. And then if you're looking at the 15K, 15K is a special event that they added at at Swim to the Moon. So it's one that I was specifically talking about. And that 15K, if you are already at a 7K a week baseline, then you could build up for 8 weeks to about 9.5, 10K per week. And then that will give you time to build up to that 15K distance. So once you have an idea of your weekly volume and where you're starting, then you have to start thinking about how much time you have available for training. And I know someone asked a question about, well, how do I fit everything in and manage life? We've all got busy lives. And the great thing about this idea of the weekly volume is you can break your swims up into a lot of different pieces. The training plans that I develop with my swimmers always kind of get you to where you need those long swims, and you do need some long swims, and sometimes you can break the long swims up, and that's something that you can always figure out how to manage into your own life. You can break up those swims into some different spaces as long as you have a few swims that are getting you that longer distance that you need. So if you're looking at a training plan and it's showing you all the long swims and you're like, wow, I can't get that long swim in right now, you can split it up and do it like a back-to-back kind of day. And another thing that's really important to looking at this and deciding, oh, do I have enough time to train for this event? Well, I see how much time is there, and I know what my life is like. Maybe you have work obligations or family obligations. In knowing your pace is really important, and not because you need to go fast, but mostly just so that way you know how much time you're going to need. It's more of a logistical situation to decide how much time you will need to do your training. So understanding that your pace in the pool might be a little faster than your pace in open water swim, and everybody's a little different. I know some people who their open water swim pace is pretty much the same as their pace in the pool. My open water swim pace is not much slower than my pool pace because I don't do a lot of sprinting. And if you do a lot of sprinting, you might have more of a fast pace in the pool. I also like, as I get going, I tend to like get more of a rhythm. So in the open water where I don't have to stop and turn as much, I actually kind of get a better momentum going. So you'll have to figure that out for yourself, what your pace is, but most people can expect to be, even anywhere like 10 to 20 seconds per 100 slower in the open water. That is not a rule. It is just it is a thought. It is a possibility. But you'll be doing plenty of open water swimming to figure that out, to know what that means for you. Okay, I'm just going to check and make sure. Like I said, if you guys have questions, make sure to throw them in the chat. Anybody have any questions right now that related to this? I just lost everybody's face on my screen. Okay, this is weird. I mentioned when we first got on the technical difficulties, and I think I'm the one having the most technical difficulties today. So that's okay. All right. Can everybody still see the screen? I lost. Oh, give me a second here, friends. All right. You guys can see this. If you guys can see the screen, that is a good thing. Okay. Perfect. All right. Very good. Uh, okay. All righty. I'm not sure why I'm having screen problems, but that's okay. Okay, so let's see if we can figure this out again. All right, so let's move on to our mental shift for marathon swims. So, obviously, a marathon swim is happening in the water, and for different events, there are different rules. Official, quote unquote, official marathon swims generally have you wearing a swimsuit, a cap, and a pair of goggles. You're not allowed to wear any wetsuits or neoprene. Technically, you're not supposed to wear a watch. Some events are not really sticklers about that. Um, but there's a big difference between the structure of a pool and what's happening in the open water. So, obviously in a pool, we know exactly what we're getting into. We've got this nice very structured environment. We're doing workouts that are structured as we're doing hundreds or 200s or 25s. And when we're in the water, all of that kind of, is thrown out. And for some people, like myself, it's a beautiful thing that you just have this kind of limitlessness, and just this availability to have no structure. It's just this wide open amount of water to get you wherever you're going. And depending on where you're swimming, you might be in a smaller lake doing laps. You might be in a river, or if you're out in the open ocean. It's just magic. For me, it's magic. It's just that idea that there is no structure behind any of this. But it comes with its challenges as well. Some people can get really bored during marathon swims, because they're long. If you're talking, if you're doing a 10K, you might be 4, 5, 6 hours in the water. You might 2 or 3 hours in the water. That's still a long time to have your face down in the water, in the ocean. It's very different from a running race where you've got fans along the side or friends who might be cheering for you. When you're doing a marathon swim, like literally all you're looking at is the water. You might have a crew member with you, and a kayak if that's available in the event that you're doing. So you might be seeing your crew member. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But for the most part, it's you in the water. I personally find that meditative and beautiful, and my mind goes to places, and it's actually a really lovely place. There are times where I can swim for 4 hours and I have no idea what I even thought of. It's for me, it's a very magical, just relaxing, meditative state. But for some people, they find it to be very boring. So I always suggest, have a couple of things that you can think about in your mind. I do a lot of math. People don't. Not everybody loves math. Whoops, not everybody loves math, but it's something to occupy your brain. I'll calculate how far I've gone, how far I need to go, what kind of pace I think I can do, how I'll count my strokes, and say, okay, I did 20 strokes now, and how many more 20s do I need to do to get to 100 or to 200? Like just all kinds of crazy things. Lots of math for me helps get the boredom away. And some people like to have like ponderings, big questions that they try to think about. It's like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to be a dog, right? And you can go on in your mind and think about that. Um, and some people like to sing music. I sing my own music in my head. Um, Generally, in events, you are not allowed to wear any headphones or anything as you swim. And for safety's sake, please don't wear headphones and music in the open water. It is unsafe. You need to be able to hear what's going around. Your hearing is already muffled as it is. And if you have music, even if it's like the bone conducting ones, people like to say that, oh, but that's better. You can still hear. You can't hear. Like you need to be aware. Your senses are also muffled by being immersed in the water. That's really important to have that. Wear your music in the pool. But I really recommend for safety that you'll do not listen to music. You can sing some in your own head though. Um, Weather is the big wild card. You never have any idea what you're going to expect. Part of the fun, also part of the frustration. So definitely get out there and swim in all different kinds of conditions to prepare for whatever may happen on swim day. Even if it's, one of the things that I talk to triathletes a lot about is that, it can be really cold. And when you're cold in the water, it's different than being cold on land, and it really zaps your energy. I highly recommend that everybody gets experience in different kind of weather conditions. And then pacing and cutoff, they kind of go together. If you're looking into any type of open water swim event, check on the website to see what their cutoffs are and decide if it's right for you. I personally like to swim long distances, and as the distances gets longer, the cutoff times and the like paces for cutoff times tend to get shorter. And I don't find that enjoyable to be racing against a cutoff time. Some people are happy with that. Some people find it very invigorating to race against a cutoff and see if they can make it. And that's fine. So just know how you personally feel about cutoff times and decide if that's important for you, to go to a certain race or not. Find out what their cutoffs are and how that makes you feel. And then, of course, that what goes along with that is understanding your own pacing. Again, like I said, you have a pace in the pool, it's very structured. Your open water pace, it might be a lot more variable. It's hard to say, oh, yeah, I swim 2 minutes per 100 in the open water on a flat day when it's this temperature and it's not windy. So there's so many weather conditions that can affect your pacing, that you really are just going to want to kind of take it with a grain of salt and understand that pacing is not as exact when you get out into the open water and working on these marathon swims. The way my computer is working, I have to go like this to look at the chat. So I'm going to do this so I can see if we have any questions in the chat. We don't have questions in the chat. Excellent. Anybody have questions about mindset, being in the water, that mental aspect? Okay. Let's keep moving on. We're going to share this again. All right. Try to share it again. Try to make it bigger. Come on, Adina. I must have jinxed myself in the beginning when I said about about having technical difficulties. I have never had such an issue. I can't get my screen to get big again. Hold on a second. We're going to stop and restart. See, things happen and you just keep moving on. Here we go. View, slideshow mode. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, let's talk a little bit about logistics. So, these are the kinds of things that are really specific to your long swim. One thing to keep in mind is we were just talking about like your pacing and the weather and the variability about swimming in the open water is a lot of times you'll see that long swims will have a time uh, suggestion versus a distance suggestion. So this, I would say, I usually recommend like up into a 5K distance. I still focus a lot on distance. I might have some time suggestions create that are attached to it, but the 5K distance is still short enough. It's not a short swim, but it is still short enough that you can get that distance in. And you'll know if you have a really gnarly day, weathered wise, that you might not hit the actual distance that you're trying for. And if you understand your time and your pace, then it'll give you an idea of, that you're close to equivalency almost for what the distance is. Once we get into that 10K, 15K, and I know that there were not as many people for those longer distances, but once you get into those longer distances, then we start thinking about doing our swims as a function of time. I know that my swim is going to take me about 4 hours, for the entire swim. I don't know, I'm estimating. Then I'll take a portion of that and it's like, oh, this is my 1 hour is my long swim. 2 hours is my long swim. So when you're talking about the 1.2 mile swims, even up the 2 mile swims, usually I still look at those for distance, especially in the case like where Liz is going swimming from an island across it. Like you have to do that distance to get to the next island. So you want to be able to swim that distance. But when as the distances get longer, it's harder to fit those really long swims into your schedule, and you don't need to. So you have that weekly total that we talked about earlier, which will give you kind of more of an indication of how far and how much time you're going to spend. The other thing to consider is lakes, ponds, oceans, and rivers are not all the same. So, whatever event you're going to do, you should know what type of water it's going to be in. So, if you're swimming in a lake, you should do the most of your training in a lake. If you're swimming in an ocean, you should do most of your training in an ocean. Freshwater and saltwater are different animals, and you will use different muscles in different ways based on the salinity, even in certain ocean versus other ocean. And of course, if you're doing a river swim, is it going to be up the river, down the river? Those are all different kinds of logistics that you need to be aware of and train for. Okay, so feeds and nutrition. This is always a big topic. My suggestion is if you are swimming over 75 minutes, I suggest that you start practicing working with feeds and nutrition. So, feeds is just the term that we give to stopping and eating. That's what swimmers called it. It is a feed. You can see in this picture, I am with my kayaker and I have a water bottle that is attached to the kayak with some kind of a cord. I don't even remember what we attached it with, because as you're doing your longer swims, you are not to touch the boat. You are not to stop. You just get a bottle thrown to you and you drink. Now, that's not to say that every swim event is like that. Specifically for Swim to the Moon, they have aid stations in the water that you can actually go and stand up and get a goo and have something to drink. And that's part of their event. So this kind of in water feeding where you're not touching anything is specific to a traditional marathon swim. And based on your event, you should find out if they offer any aid stations, and what their rules are about feeding. So you will create for yourself a timeline of how you feed. It's how much you're going to eat and nutrition that you're going to take in is not very different from running or triathlons. What you'll need to find out is what feels good for you, because sometimes eating while you're swimming can feel different than eating while you're running or cycling. So that'll take some experimentation. Just do not be fooled that because you're in the water and you don't feel like you're sweating, that you're not losing salt and electrolytes. Every time you go to a pool, you should have electrolytes on deck with you. Always have some nutrition in your body before you go to swim to give you the energy that you need. And then you'll work based on the event that you're doing and the amount of time and what works for your body as to how often you'll feed throughout. Support crew, like I said, here is the if you are part of an event that allows you to have a support crew or requires you to have a support crew, you may have someone in a kayak. If you're in Boston Harbor, you might have a boat. And, again, that will be something that's determined by the event that you're doing. Having somebody on your support crew is a we could spend an entire hour talking about that, so we're not going to get too much into that tonight. But just understand that the person who is your support crew should be somebody who understands swimming and understands some of the things that we're talking about here, because they will need to be timing you and giving you your feeds and paying attention to you and keeping you safe and guiding you along. It's a really, really big job. So I recommend that you find somebody who is committed to doing some training swims with you and who understands swimming enough that they will be able to support you. And the last thing is, and it should not be overlooked, but is chafing. Chafing can happen anywhere. You don't have to be wearing a wetsuit to chafe. Um, Anywhere that skin or clothing, bathing suits, whatever is rubbing can cause chafing. My personal favorite anti-chafe is Tri-Slide by SBR Sports. I am an ambassador, so yes, I have a code and I get a commission if you use my code. But I have been using Tri-Slide for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. I wear it on every long swim under the armpit. I tend to get it in the armpits because as I'm swimming along, I get, you know, 4 hours, 5 hours of your arm going around and round and rubbing. That creates some chafing for me there. And the bathing suit line can also create some chafing. It's just that repetitive motion over time, especially in the salt water. So if you are ocean swimming, 100% do not underestimate the effect of salt and how much it can chafe. Oop, I think there's something in the chat this time. How does one prepare for an open water event? Are there groups in the seacoast? So preparing for an open water event, you don't need to be in a group. I suggest that you have at least one person who you can swim with. It's always safer to swim in a group, or with another person. I mean, a group can be two. And specifically in the seacoast, I don't know exactly, Maria, what resources are there. You can check there. There is. I'm drawing a blank, so I am going to make a note, and I will let you know. But there is a group that is in Seacoast. I know if you know Bob Fernald, I think he's kind of in that area as well. And anywhere that people swim, or that you may swim, my suggestion is go there on a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, and see who's around and go introduce yourself. This is how I met the different groups of people who I swim with. There's a Facebook group for Boston area swimmers called Boston Open Water Swimming. That's a great place. Just like, hey, is anybody swimming in Walden, or is anybody swimming in Nantasket or Nahant? And just to be able to find other people who may have a similar goal, a similar time frame, or just someone who just loves to swim. I don't do a lot of events, but I do a lot of swimming, so I'll just meet up with people who are looking for swimmers to have in their kind of pod. A top three of 5K races for beginners in the Massachusetts and New Hampshire area. So the great thing about the races around here is there are a lot a lot of races that are 1 to 2 miles. And then I use the word race kind of loosely. There are also some charity swims, like the Swim Across America events are really great. I know they do that one in Boston. Um, the Nubble Light Swim, which I wouldn't, it's okay for a beginner as long as you do the training and are comfortable in the ocean, right? So it gets kind of tricky to be able to say, people have different comfort levels for different types of events, and different definitions of what a beginner is. So if you're looking for something that you just want to finish, the 5K, I know they do one in Marshfield. The Nubble Light is actually 2.4 miles. Those are the only ones I'm thinking of. There's another one. What is it called? The Oh my goodness. There's what's it called? The Glenny swim or something like that. The swim Glen. If you Google Glen swim, it'll come up. That's not the exact name, but I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I don't do a lot of events, so unfortunately, I don't know a lot of names of events. But if you message me afterwards, I can send you off there. There's definitely like boards and message boards and stuff where you can find them. How is orientation different in the marathon swim? Some distances are not marked with buoys, so how do you do it? Excellent question. So, what happens, your kayaker is the one who does the job to navigate you in some of the longer marathon swims. So I guess we'll step back. If it's an event that has buoys, and there are many events that do have buoys, you might be doing laps around buoys. You may have buoys that are really extended, and that's why you have a kayaker, because the kayaker can see the buoys farther away than you can see them yourself. And that will help. The kayaker is your eyes. So typically in a longer swim, where you don't have a lot of buoys, you will have a kayaker who is your eyes, and then your job is just to swim. It's a little weird the first time you do it because you don't sight, you don't look ahead. Literally, all you do is head down and swim, and you watch your kayaker. You watch your kayaker, and that's your only point of reference as you're swimming. Um, this is why it's important to practice with a kayaker in the beginning as well. And so that way you can get your kind of timing down together with the kayaker while you're swimming. But it's weird in the beginning, but it's really nice. You're like, this is great. Literally, all I have to do is swim. So, yes. Oh, thanks. Liz found it. The Glen Lake swim. Yes. Awesome. Thanks, Liz, for putting that in the chat. Excellent. All right. So, questions. So there were a couple of questions that people sent in, strength training and returning from injury. And if you have other questions, you can throw them in the chat. So as far as strength training goes, I highly recommend it. I strength train all the time. Currently, where it's in a base building phase for my main swim, I'm doing some really heavy lifting. I do barbell lifting, and it's pretty intense. I go twice a week. It's full body work. There's core work involved. Swimmers should always be doing shoulder rotator cuff kind of accessory work. But absolutely, strength training is great. The more you can train, the more you can strengthen your body and your muscles, the stronger swimmer you'll be. The core is number one. If you don't know where to start, join a Pilates class because your core is what keeps you stable in the open water. Especially the crazier the water is, the more core control you need. The crazier the water is, the more you're going to need that stability in your rotator cuffs, and all that lat strength to be able to pull yourself through the water. So strength training, for me, 2 times a week is a non-negotiable. and at a minimum, Pilates. Some if you can find a group exercise class that does a full body training, that's great. I mean, the athletes who train with me, I have a functional training program that my coach actually developed for endurance athletes. So that's available for anyone who trains with me. If you're training in the pool for distance, are you not supposed to push off the wall every lap? Oh, this is one of my absolute favorite questions on earth because there's a huge conversation between, oh, well, you shouldn't push off, you shouldn't do flip turns, you should, because they're not in the ocean. When you're training in the pool, you're training in the pool. You are going to push off the wall. It's totally fine. There's a lot of benefits that you can get. If you push off the wall and work on your body position every time you push off the wall, that's going to benefit you for the open water. It's also going to help you with your breath control as you're underwater. So I do not believe that you should not be pushing off the wall every lap. Um, the one time I would say that you may consider that is if you do not have access to open water to do your long swims at, then you might want to try to do it more like a circle swim without pushing off the wall so much. But if you have access to open water and you're doing your long swims in the open water, there's no problem with pushing off of the wall. I have never found that to be a limiter in progressing in the open water. Flip turns. There are no flip turns in the ocean, in the pool, rather in the lakes. You don't need to know how to do a flip turn. If you love flip turns, do them. If you don't love flip turns, don't do them. My take on flip turns is the only reason to need the only necessity to do a flip turn is if you are competing in a pool. Other than that, do an open turn. It's totally fine. There's no shame in any of that. And to address the question about injury, that's a tricky one. There's no easy answer to that one. It's kind of an it depends answer. You should always follow medical advice, whether that's a medical doctor, if it's a physical therapist, if you're working with a massage therapist, acupuncture, chiropractor, whatever kind of medical doctor that you're working with who's helping you come back from whatever injury you're coming back from. My advice to you is go slowly and give yourself some grace. It's kind of a very popular phrase right now. So give yourself grace. When you're coming back from an injury, there's a different mental piece that goes along with it. And you definitely have to kind of respect yourself to say that, oh, I might not be in the place of where I was before, and realize that things are going to just look a little different, and allow yourself to feel like like you're a beginner again, like you're kind of starting over. Um, so that's kind of my best advice for injury. It's really such an individualized concept because it depends on what your injury is, what you're training for. So get some medical advice, either work one-on-one with a coach, or even do like one of the things that I do is I have strategy sessions. Because I know a lot of swimmers who like to coach themselves for the most part. But sometimes like, wow, but how do I come back from this injury? So they need like just a help. Can you help me figure out my strategy of what to do? So I'll do a strategy session with an athlete that we can look specifically at what they're coming back from, what they're training for, and kind of make that roadmap to get you from point A to point B. All right, I am going to stop this share just for a moment, if I can. We'll see. I am. All right, everybody's still here. Is this the everything's still working? Let me just see if we have any more questions in the chat. The one thing I don't like about it is when you broadcasting the slides is I can't see everybody. So I like to be able to see everybody when we're chatting. I'm just looking at, I think I've hit, did anybody ask a question that has not gotten an answer to a question yet? I'm going to grab a sip of water here. Always stay hydrated. All right. Well, it doesn't seem like we have any other other questions in the chat. So what I am going to do is, all right, so we're going to go back over here and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Swim to the Moon, and what we are doing with Swim to the Moon. So, just a little bit about the Swim to the Moon event. It is a lake swim. It takes place in a town called Pinckney, Michigan. It's very close to a place called Hell, which is kind of entertaining. It is a chain of five lakes, so it's really kind of fun. You get to like get to go through all these little like uh, twists and turns, and there's this culvert, like little tunnel thing that you go through. And so if you do the 5K, you go from one end all the way to the other end, and then the 10K you get to go back, and the 15K is three loops. But it's a super inclusive event. They have everything from a half mile up to that 15K. I did the event a couple of years ago, and one of the things that I loved about it the most was I had signed up for the 15K. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a super fast swimmer as the distances get longer, and I didn't make the cutoff. So at the 10K mark, there were a handful of us, I wasn't the only one, who didn't make the cutoff. But the really cool thing is they gave us a 10K finisher medal and a 10K finisher towel, which I thought was great because most races they're like, sorry, you didn't finish. And I really thought that it was such in the spirit of, inclusion and Team Be Real that I love. It was very unique. And on top of it, as it says here on the slide, that Swim to the Moon is the fundraise part, and I don't know what percentage of the proceeds goes to a camp called North Star Reach, which is actually on one of the beaches where the turnaround is, where I missed the cutoff. And it's a camp that provides outdoor activities for children with chronic illness. So it's a great cause. The people are nice. The event is fun. There's a lot of different options for people. The time cutoffs up through the 10K are very generous. I think you have like you might 5 hours. It might even be 5 hours, I think, to do the 10K, which is a pretty generous cutoff for some of the events that I've seen. Um, so what I did this year is I have partnered with the people at Swim to the Moon and created some training pods, the kind of based on those 16 and 24 week options that we looked at earlier. So that way, for people who have a pretty good base, they could get a 16-week training plan. And if they're just starting out, then they could add that 8 weeks of base building on, to have a specific training plan that's going to get you to that 5K, 10K, or 15K. They get access to the foundational strength plan that I mentioned. We are going to be doing a welcome webinar next week that will have some more specifics. I mean, today we talked on a very high level about a few different things, but we'll have more specifics about what it actually looks like at Swim to the Moon, some more specifics about how to prepare your own fueling plan, and then answering any other training questions specifically about the training plan. Each person in the training pod will get a 30-minute one-on-one coaching session with me, which allows you then to say, hey, here are the things that are happening in my life specifically that are going to affect the plan. For example, I have someone that I coach who works a lot of overnight shifts, and she's like, I don't have a set plan that like every Sunday I can do my long swim. So I sat down and worked with her. I said, okay, here's how we can adjust your schedule. So that way she's getting the benefit of the plan, but a little personalized to her own life. We all have individual things. The hard thing about a using a standard plan is that it's not personalized to you, and we all have things that we need to tweak our plan, but you can use a plan if you know how to tweak it. And that's what that 30 minutes can be, either to help tweak the plan, or if you have any specific issues that you're talking about. Hey, I'm not going to get access to open water until forever, or I have this injury that I'm coming back from, right? So anything that's kind of individual gives us some time to really personalize the plan for you. Everyone will get a race plan template with a description on how to fill it out. And if you send it to me, I will happily email back my thoughts. And then we'll have another webinar towards the end with the training pod to prepare the race and get us hyped up and excited about the event. The cool thing is, if you have an event that's a similar timing, like I said, Swim to the Moon is in August. So if you're looking at an event with a similar timing, you definitely could benefit from this pod. It doesn't have to specifically be for Swim to the Moon. And if you are like, wow, I really need a private plan or something customized for me specifically, please send an email to me at hello@adinaoneil.com and we can talk about that. Um, and then the other thing, there's a couple of optional add-ons for the training pods, video swim analysis. So I do that in person in the Boston area, but I also, if I can teach you how to take your own video and give you some feedback on your stroke, so you know what drills to be working on right now. I think the my biggest pet peeve, other than people asking about can I push off the wall, is people following drills online that they don't know what they're doing. Like following a drill whether they need or don't need it. Right? It's like, I looked on YouTube and all the people are doing these things. It's like, well, do you know why you're doing that drill? Maybe not. So like doing a drill for the sake of doing it, sure, there's some benefit, but if you don't know why you're doing a drill, you may not be getting the benefit you think you're getting. I definitely, the fingertip drill. Has everybody ever heard of the fingertip drill? Like, there are like at least three different reasons I could think that I encourage people to do the fingertip drill, right? So just by doing the fingertip drill, you're actually doing something, but you may or may not be addressing a need in your own stroke. So that video analysis is hugely discounted if you are part of the training pod. And then if you have any other you need additional needs throughout the training session, there are options to add on a coaching or strategy session, again at a discounted price. So all of that information, I tried to be fancy and throw a QR code. Did anybody try the QR code out of curiosity? I maybe should have. I would appreciate if someone could at least try it and give me a thumbs up and say, yes, it took you to the site. That would be really awesome. Because this is the first time I'm getting a thumbs up. Yay, look at me. I may have had a trouble with putting the technology on the screen today, but the QR code worked. So I'm celebrating that. Number one rule, celebrate everything. Thanks for checking that out for me. Yeah, so that QR code takes you to my website that has more details about these pods, if that's something that you're interested in. And of course, you can ask me any other questions about that as well at any time. And that's the end. Thanks for coming. Have a great swim. It's always a good thing. And be well, be real, and keep moving forward, as we like to say. So I'm going to stop sharing again, I think. See if I can do this. Ta-da. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, thanks. I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned something. Any other questions or comments, definitely hop right in and have a conversation.
So, Adina, just so I'm clear, you can sign up for the Half Moon 5K training pod and
Yeah,
not do the Half Moon.
that is
Like,
correct.
right,
Yes,
okay, I just wanted
yes,
to say
yes.
you'll get the 5K 24-week plan
You'll get
and
all
work
the things,
together all of the
all
things.
the things.
Okay.
Yeah. The registration for the Swim to the Moon plan is the Swim to the Moon event is separate.
Okay.
Yes.
Super.
Yeah. So you can use that for anything, any event. And what do you call it? The hype webinar and the welcome webinar. I mean, the welcome one probably would be okay for anyone because we've got 5Ks are not happening anytime soon, at
Yeah.
least here on the East Coast. And then if the hype webinar doesn't fit into your timeline, if it's I'll definitely hear feedback if it makes more sense to have a separate one, or there will definitely be a recording, so that way everybody gets that benefit. When I was creating the pods for Swim to the Moon, I was thinking specifically about that, and then someone had asked me like, well, do I have to do Swim to the Moon? I was like, well, no. So I'm definitely open to suggestions if I was like, how would it work if it's not? I think for the most part, it'd be pretty easy. You'll still get all the same benefits, but I wouldn't want anyone to kind of miss the hype, that race prep part.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to do it. It's just going away for a weekend can be a little bit tricky. So,
Yeah, yeah,
I will keep my options open. I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. You tell me, like, if you have to like sign up now to get into that race, but um,
yeah.
it'll,
It is pretty popular, but there's generally like I think there's like I don't know like 200 or 300 spots for the 5K. There's a lot of spots.
yeah.
Um, do you have to be a coaching client to do the swim analysis? No. If you are not doing the pod, all right, thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
If you are not going to be part of the pod, I can send you. I have a separate sign up for swim analysis. If you're local, we can find a time to meet in person, or the video ones are easy enough to schedule online. So Morgan, I can send you some info about that. How are the starts at Swim to the Moon? Group starts or heats? Oh, so it was a group start, but not actually. It's not really a group start or a heat. It's kind of like a rolling start. You kind of were people self-seed a little bit. Like it's like I don't even remember it being a thing. It's just like people you get in a group and you kind of go. People self-seed a little bit according to their speed. I mean, when we did the 15K, I don't know, there was maybe like 50 or 60 of us, so it wasn't like a big thing. We just kind of walked our way in, and it was a non-issue. People who were intense about it were in the beginning, and other people were not. It was, yeah, it's not at all like going to an Ironman event where people are like jockeying for position and things like that. It's definitely a lot more low key. So that was a lot of fun. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out and talking open water swim with me tonight. I am going to stop a recording, and so that way I have that ready for everyone else.